Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting Propagandacast with me, your host, ImperialDane. And today I have for you a 1 vs 1 in the darkness of Semois. Yes, oh wait, got a church in the way. Stuff like that happens, but we are going to have a 1 vs 1 in the darkness of Semois. Who shall be fighting in this western part? We are going to be seeing Massaisku. Fascinating name, fighting for the 85th Infanterie division. Opposing him shall be that dashing rogue ImperialDane, fighting for the 29th Infantry Division. Ready to hold the line as the Krauts launch another assault to try and break through the stranglehold around Saint-Lô. Fancy that. And yes, indeed, a bit of recognition there, at least if you remember. Well, why does the name sound familiar? Yes, indeed, why? Wehrmacht quarters going up here for Massaisku. He's going for the usual, let's only start with 2 pioneers style. I mean, again, not something highly unusual there. Same for me, I'm not going for any sort of experimental. I'm sort of a 2 engineer man. Sort of trying to jog his memory. Clearly it's not from there he heard me, so I'm not entirely sure where. My brand of deodorant, books, I don't know. I mean, I've certainly had a bit of a reputation across different forums as well, so I mean, could be that. My pioneer spreading out to either side. Probably some Volksgrenadiere on the way. And just, the usual securing of points. Sort of regular nonsense right there. And of course the wiring off around the fuel point. I mean, again, nice little trick there. Can certainly help protect if your opponent decides to go in and harass it. Although, of course, if you decide to send in some engineers, not so much. Volksgrenadiers, and there we go, the first infantry team arriving. Volksgrenadiere. And yes, indeed, pointing out he could feel free to send in replays. He was around rank 12, so I figured he was alright. Don't know if he'll be watching this replay, of course. And of course, I do hope you enjoy it. And of course, as usual, feel free to provide, feedback and all that. I'm certainly always eager to improve. Hope you will be matched opponent. And me perhaps going with a slightly more smart-ass reply of I hope I win. Yes, I know. Not the most gracious thing, but mostly jesting. Mostly. But again, we are seeing Volksgrenadiers going up here. I mean, it's a rather slow start from him. I mean, he's not really making much of an approach. And he's actually using the Volksgrenadiers mostly to do some seizing of territory. I mean, it's actually a bit delayed. I mean, if you look at it, usually you'd had some infantry also around here the same stage, but he's actually a bit delayed. That's not always a good thing. At least timing-wise, I argue he's a bit delayed. Obviously, MG42 ready. Volksgrenadiers are ranging quite far ahead of any sort of other units, and of course, I usually prefer the 2 Volksgrenadiers and then an MG or something like that to sort of present a more stable front, thus also ensuring the MG42 doesn't suddenly, get caught out in the open. And yes, engaging the Volksgrenadiers, doing a light damage, but then retreating. Rifleman moving towards the north. MG ready to protect the cutoff point. That's a really nice thing, to prevent the Semois pin, but my riflemen have better ideas. These Volksgrenadiers are slightly wounded, and so the riflemen press the advantage. Also moving down here again, in case, someone might be setting up for some harassment here. Obviously not, though. Volksgrenadiers are quickly moving onwards. More riflemen on the way from here. MG42 not moving forward, he's a bit more cautious. Another Volksgrenadier team arriving, and there we go. Sort of first proper engagement to show. Rifle moving up, and I'm actually, my intention is was I've actually sort of queued up action, so they sort of jump between the points, and then sort of up here. And sort of trying to get off a nice flanking position while sort of still keeping most of my troops in cover. And they're also sort of reasonably close. And of course, at closer ranges, of course, the riflemen will have the advantage in terms of range. And of course, depending on who sort of drops first in the Volksgrenadier team, I mean, firepower can really drop. I mean, if the squad leader drops, your Volksgrenadier team will suddenly be a lot more vulnerable because the squad leader tends to do the most damage. Well, the team leader. So, I mean, that's a rather vital little bit there to remember. And for some reason, the squad team leader usually tends to be the one at the front, which also means he tends to be the one to first drop, which is sort of a slight disadvantage at the Volksgrenadiers. Just lucky, perhaps not. It's all about a bit, taking advantages and all that. Pioneers rushing at the riflemen, not in good position, mining the central area. Riflemen getting ready to move about. Small duel right here between the Volksgrenadiers and riflemen. And he's sort of, you know, a bit again keeping troops sort of not really focusing at any point. And these Volksgrenadiers are running into a bit of a problem. No MG to actually support them. He needs to get, you know, a bit faster moving. A bit faster. Slight engagement up here. Riflemen moving in. Opening up on these pioneers to sort them out. On the other riflemen are in fact back for reinforcement. Full rifleman teams, that's the sort of usual thing you see. MD opening up here, engineers sort of holding the line here. At least trying to. MD here proving to be a problem there, mining the bridge. And there's also sort of ensuring a slightly better movement there. And sort of trying for a sort of flanking position on the MG, trying to force it back. Rifleman apparently just managed to reach cover. But of course another rifleman team move in from the north to put pressure, and there we go. MG quickly retreating, rather realizing it can't win that fight. And I need of course to get something going on right here in the base. That would at least be the advisable thing, and also get those engineers out of that bloody building. But more engineers on the way. And what's more for Mr. Massaisku? Just 4 teams, basically plus the pioneers. 2 Volksgrenadiers, 2 MG42s. Not a bad combination, but the sort of way he's wielding it is perhaps a bit less practical. And of course also allows for much easier flanking in some senses if it decides to really, you know, focus down. So that, I would say, is a bit of a vital difference. Strategic point here secured, thus also cutting him off. In fact, he's not really holding much of the map at this moment. Although that might change. He might make a comeback of some sort of manner. Fuck and bleep, I'm rusty. Yes, indeed, he's a bit rusty, but we all get that feeling. You know, I'm just sort of being friendly. No point, you know, being nasty. We all have, you know, sometimes a bit of a break. Sometimes because we want to, other times because we're too bloody busy to actually play the game. I get that from time to time. Supply going up. And it happens sometimes that I play with the Americans myself. But medic station going up here. Not the best positioning. I mean, it's sort of, you know, out a bit too much in the open. At the same time, it's sort of a position where, you know, slightly comfortable, slightly secure. And again, I mean, you know, be careful placing out your MGs in the open. I mean, they can actually go down to a unit they're trying to suppress. A vital difference. Mucho vital. Rifle moving in again, thus pressing against the position. These Volksgrenadiers and have terrible condition. Should be retreating, and there we go. In fact, retreating. Pioneers moving up. Slight break out here in the north. Engineers, riflemen, MG, and some Volksgrenadiers. Small skirmish. Pioneers mining this area. He's wanting to, you know, prevent me from rising perhaps in with an M8. He's sensing it. He hasn't seen me gone with any sort of BAR. So, oh dear, these engineers were sort of rushed in, and things didn't go right. That was bloody my fault. Grenadiers have arrived. Of course, there's a Kriegbergs, but he's not going for the Pack 13. Of course, that might be the reason for the mining. He, of course, might be going for one later. And mines go off right there. Pioneers taking a bit of damage. And basically, I'm using these rifles to sort of tie all of these forces up. I mean, that's basically, you know, quite a force. Detained by 6 or one other team in a building. Of course, it's not always advisable. We're using grenading, of course. Let's just briefly, what was he trying to do there? I mean, he was trying to sort of essentially sort of draw me out, and then of course the usual grenade at the doorstep trick basically mean they'd run out and again get killed. Large numbers. Usually the way to defeat it is not to notice it, because I mean usually you'd react to it, but I mean if you don't notice it, it doesn't work. Basically. I mean that's sort of the trick to grenading. I mean, the sort of just throw it into the building mostly works when your opponent isn't paying attention. Basically. When he isn't paying attention, I mean, again, that sort of doorstep thing doesn't work. So, of course, that's sort of the slightly fun bit. And, of course, there's no way to actually sort of really determine if he's paying attention, I suppose, except, you know, sort of thinking, where's the largest fight, and then sort of, you know, do some nasty bits at the sort of less important fights. But more mines right here, again, sort of mining the church. I'm pretty sure the vicar won't like that. Well, I know what they call a French priest. Un priest? I'm not sure. But we are in fact seeing more grenadiers coming out from Massaisku. Apparently the 85th Infantry Division is feeling quite bold in terms of that. Launching out more with its veteran grenadier. And certainly the majority of the divisions actually fighting the Americans were actually sort of infantry divisions. The amount of armor was quite limited for some time. It was only later on the sort of Panzer and 2nd Panzer Division arrived from the British sector after having taken quite a beating.
Infantry squad reporting casualties.
And it never really sort of matched the level with the British had to fight. At least until sort of Operation Lüttich came in. Me actually trying for sort of harassment here. And then running into the barbed wire. And that's of course actually noticing and pushing through here in the center. Minesweeper still first. I mean, that's great from Massaisku. Or Massaisku. Whatever. I mean, you know, if you see mines, you know, enough. Get some bloody Minesweeper and lead the charge. Medics pulling in the wounded. Grenadiers moving in. Grenades lobbed at the riflemen. Oh dear, 2 down. Forcing the rest out to the open as well. Making easy targets for the riflemen. I mean, the Grenadiers. Full screen is also moving in, quite nice. Flamethrower on the way though for the engineers. M8 ready, armored skirts on the way. Again, what you want for the M8, always, always, always. Unless you're incredibly poor. And grenade on the rifle, forcing them away. Engineers also forced away. Medics basically doing their work uninterrupted. And the M8 arriving, going to throw wrench into his works. And he's just gotten the Pack 38. He's just gotten the Panzerabwehrkanone 38. So a bit of fun with that M8, and looks like we soon might even have a fully reconstituted rifleman team. And he's quickly actually sort of, you know, scampering about to sort of establish a fresh defensive position here. Although, I mean, usually, I mean, let's just briefly switch over, and again, let's briefly pause, I believe, this time for that. But, I mean, if you're going to sort of, you know, hold a position using grenadiers and full skirmishes, I mean, these use the ability to lay down sandbags and barbed wire. I mean, you know, again, if they're not doing anything, you know, try to fortify a position, make it harder for the opponent to take it. Of course, against an M8, there's... I mean, it's going to be limited what you can do with sandbags. I mean, it's not like it's going to... Oh, dear, we got stuck on some sandbags, John. Oh, dear, Henry. Bugger. Something like that, I know. But, of course, right now, of course, he realizes he's in a bit of a problem again. Full retreat. He lacked anti-tank assets, at least... And thus, he basically, you know, pulled all his units off the field. Panzerabwehrkanone, they're ready. And me basically sort of pushing my luck until I sort of suspect there might be a Pack 38 MG moving up forward as well, rather than moving ahead. And I probably actually forgot about this until sort of seeing more attentive right here. And I actually decided to lay down a Greyhound mine about here. There we go. Sort of figuring that's sort of the straightish line towards this point, which might, you know, catch him out in something. And there we go, half-track arriving. I suppose it could be from some sort of command unit for one of the few actually slightly motorized or mechanized units. They would have had a half-track. The Ausführung D version is essentially of it. Or I suppose it could have been a Lend or something they found. But I mean, I believe it would be in the anti-aircraft, the self-propelled for the self-propelled tank destroyers. And there we go. Greyhound mine knocks it out. I certainly had been expecting that, but I mean, I'm not complaining. Nice little bonfire there. And he's certainly pushing forward once more. Grenadiers leading the way.
Supply lines are broken. We have territory cut off from supply.
Interestingly enough, Greyhound mines don't actually count for kills for the vehicle. Adversely for engineers, they actually do count. And they don't do for the munition half-tracks either. Sort of slight little detail there. Probably not something most people do know, but it sort of applies. And the M8 running into mines. Deciding I'd best get the bloody hell out of there. MG covering all of this, and the... Oh, I'd love to have some good artillery here, but we're releasing a big heavy push here. I probably have the artillery, haven't been spending on Greyhound mines, but you know... Hindsight is always so fun to have, but he's really making a great push here. Lots of grenadiers. In fact, he's gotten 3 grenadier teams now.
One of our sectors has been cut off.
These riflemen were sent a bit too far ahead. He's quickly doing his best to recapture, and he will lay down one Greyhound mine here in case, you know, he might move up here. Although at the same time, of course, he can now move here because I essentially crushed this with the M8 to make it easier to move in through there. And looks like some riflemen were killed.
We are losing ground.
Pack 38 gets a bit exposed. No veterancy, but again, lots of grenadiers. He might consider, you know, getting a medic bunker with all that infantry. I mean, I've got a medic station. That's only already paid off with one rifleman team. I mean, again, if you've got a lot of infantry, you know, work towards attrition. Basically, I'd always say work towards attrition and get, if possible, a medic station, medic bunker, casualty clearing station, whatever it is.
Our forward supply lines are
It can
broken.
really make a difference in some cases. Other times, you know, it won't do a job for you. But usually, I mean, with good placement and a bit of foresight, I mean, a medic station, medic bunker can really pay itself off. Nothing going on here. We are seeing an attempt at the Sturmarmerie. And Panzerx being equipped just in case a M8 might decide to be naughty and rush in. Currently, though, the M8 is getting reinforced. Weapon support center up. Getting a mortar because basically it's a mortar's positions. MG advancing right here. Rifleman holding the position there. And I'm not really, well, getting more riflemen there actually. Otherwise I said I wasn't holding much with this. Grenadiers moving in from the north. Rushing in some riflemen at the same time. I believe I should have some grenades ready. And, yes. And that was basically a huge explosion. Killing quite a few, but mostly my troops. And I hadn't seen that coming either. Rifleman taking heavy losses against the MG. Nice precision here, although some bits are starting to blow away. I mean, he's certainly getting a good effect out of his infantry, keeping it together. Although, again, he could be flanking with grenadiers, making things a bit harder. Instead, he's actually sending out grenadiers instead of sort of trying to crush me in the center. And there we go, grenade on the MG-42. Clearing it out, leaving behind only false grenadiers. Rifleman moving in. Does he pick up the MG? M8 also moving in to sort of keep up the pressure and try to prevent him from taking that. And apparently he doesn't go for it. Quite easy enough, instead he's turning out the other MG to cover. And the Pak-38 can't cover again, keeping the M8 behind the building. Sort of little tricks like that can be quite helpful. Rifleman running straight into heavy MG fire though. And mortar setting up there. 60mm mortar versus the German, which actually used the 81mm mortar. And so of course you might be wondering, why is that? The key actually lies in the name of the game. There we go, actually artillery in, forcing away the MG, allowing me to take that one. But basically, I mean, the name is sort of in the company of heroes. What do I mean by that? I mean, for example, well, by that I mean that the American company, that heavy platoon, would have had a 60mm mortar. German heavy platoon would have had the 81mm mortar. I mean, they actually had sort of larger mortars than the Americans all around, and where the Americans would have had the 81mm, the Germans would have had a 120mm, which they basically ripped off from the Soviets. But it was quite an effective mortar, actually. And apparently this... So there you go. He's advancing, of course. And he actually sort of wonders, why did they use an entire MG, for... Or engineer team for a MG? And of course, that's a good question. I mean, I've certainly also seen recommend going against that. But why did I do it in this case? Well, basically because I didn't have anything else at hand and I wanted it. I really wanted, because, I mean, if you might have noticed, I wouldn't have anything to hold the lines. Of course, I need something. In which case, sacrifice the engineers, stabilize the front for now. That was the basic idea of it. Kampfkraft Center going up for him now. Nice to see. No doc. Oh wait, he's actually gone terror. But quite a few riflemen by now, I'd imagine. Some veterancy 1. MG slightly pulling back just in case he tries something, so he can't easily hit it. Or at least as easily. And the weapon support center, I think I'm a bit at this stage, a bit elsewhere, so I'm not really responding. But again, I mean, it sort of creates a bit of a harder area for him to move through, because again, mortar can basically bombard him. And will also require him to actually be a lot more speedy if he actually wants to sort of pull anything off. So, I mean, again, a mortar in the defensive can actually sort of force your opponent to get a bit more swifter moving. And of course also make more mistakes in that sense. And he's actually gotten 4 grenadier teams now. Again, a medic bunker might have been a better idea somewhere between that and again, perhaps, Sturmarmerie and some veterancy. But again, pretty heavy focus on grenadiers, and I certainly know for some people that can actually cause a bit of a problem, because grenadiers are actually pretty damn good troops. They're certainly one of the best. Mortars beginning to fall, and the MG in the cemetery stopping the grenadier, and false grenadiers, more riflemen moving up to support this. More grenades at the church, and this time the riflemen actually get out. Mortar rounds falling. Other grenadiers basically holding the line. They're not quite committing though. MG holding some other riflemen at bay. And here we go, my own attempt at the sort of door trick, and there we go. Though he is quicker to move on, actually sort of anticipates as he sees the rifleman throwing, and I only get 1. But hadn't he, and he'd been a bit too slow, he'd probably lost a lot of grenadiers. So, fun little fact there. Rifleman going after the MG, make it just past it before it actually manages to fire, thus forcing it off. Nice position right here in the center. And mine gets hit.
They're losing territory.
There's effective grenadiers moving up here towards the riflemen. Veterancy 1. No further veterancy. And what are we seeing? We're seeing a Nebelwerfer to support its infantry. Quite nice. And here I made a mistake. I mean, I'll certainly admit it myself, you know. I threw it too far. And again, I mean, against a moving target, I mean, usually you try to throw it at the sort of path you imagine where it will be. Of course, if you're lazy, you just sort of click the unit and sort of go, right, that will be taken care of. So again, my fault there. And of course, it's time for the mid-game analysis. My apologies for getting a bit tardy on that. But of course, what's the situation? I mean, it's a bit dicey for him. I mean, he's got plenty of infantry, but he's not quite getting the full out of it. He's not really trying to attack from enough angles, which really would be effective with the grenadiers, but of course now it's getting the Nebelwerfer. That might help in an assault if he uses it properly. Though of course you might get a Stug or an armoured charger again, sort of support me getting an anti-tank gun, because I sort of worry he might be getting armour. Of course the other thing in that of course would be sort of the more thing that Rommelslayer would do, is, you know, change the direction of the attack, move through here, sort of attack up there. That might also, you know, be an idea. So I mean, slightly that, of course what for me, might consider getting, you know, a tank deeper and then sort of sticking it to Jerry. Of course, might get more veterans, might get some BARs. I mean, there's plenty of options right there. Of course, I might also try to sort of further fortify the center. And again, another rifle team has in fact been reformed, so that's 2 so far. And I only paid 150 munitions for it. Hooray! Let's return to the fight. Riflemen actually lose to the Grenadiers. Grenadiers actually getting quite a few kills. Almost taking out an entire rifleman team in the process. And they're pretty much all in camo uniform. Almost. Except Helmut. He threw his camouflage jacket away. Grenadiers charging in here. Bit blobbing up. Has to be careful with that, although he probably knows I'm not going airborne, so he's a bit safer, but still. Grenade getting lobbed. I was actually sort of expecting him to run into the path there, so there you go. But of course there's a mortar firing in support. M8 moving in. And 2 riflemen down. And I don't think I'll be able to get the rifleman out of there in time. And there we go, rifleman team in fact goes down. Panzer 6 flying, M8 flying, blasting away. 50 caliber on top, Grenadiers, rifleman moving in, Grenadiers. And of course, and this is of course where I'm banking on. He's actually forgotten about them, hoping to get one good kill. Grenade on these Grenadiers. Grenadiers pick up. Oh dear, another rifleman team actually goes down. That's some pretty grim losses for me. And in return, I only get 1 Grenadier team. That's not quite good economics. And an engineer team, because he's actually changing slightly. You know, his strategy, he's not just attacking from one point, he's going from other points as well. That's what we like to see. At least it's better. And he's actually gotten a Geschützwagen. Of course, the 85th didn't really have it. I mean, we could sort of imagine it's a Marder, because currently, sadly, that's rather what it functioned as. The Geschützwagen wasn't actually a Marder, as I've seen some claim it. It was sort of an assault gun replacement for the 21st Panzer Division. Trouble is, it's been sort of nerfed, so it's essentially a not quite as useful Marder. It's a bit too slow, a bit too unmaneuverable. It sort of makes it less effective. At least that would sort of be my interpretation. Veterancy 2 though for the infantry, nice to see. But I mean, a Geschützwagen, I mean, you're going to also get Veterancy 2 before it even becomes slightly useful against infantry, because that's where it gets the MG. But there we go. I mean, German infantry divisions actually had some self-propelled artillery. Sort of, again, the Geschützwagen, I mean, not the Geschützwagen, but a Marder. They would usually have some of those to actually support them. In some cases, they couldn't get them, so they get Stugs. That was the case with the 352nd, but usually Marders were sort of reserved for infantry divisions at certain stages of the war. And of course, once they got the Jagdpanzer concept off, they got those for the Panzer divisions. The infantry divisions all had to make do with the Marder until they could get the Hetzer, which was again later in the war. So again, slightly fun details there. Geschützwagen moving out, equipped with a Pak 40, which was pretty much standard for all the Marders, except some which were actually equipped with a Russian field cannon, which had a slightly increased caliber and actually could do a bit more damage. Rifleman and Veterancy 2 versus Volksgrenadiers Veterancy 2. Volksgrenadiers are not winning this fight, as you might be noticing. And he's actually pushing the Geschützwagen into sort of support in the south. Quite interesting. And yes, if you're sending them in on their own versus riflemen without MP40s and other sort of support, Yeah, they're going to lose to riflemen with BARs up close. But they actually make it out of there. But again, I mean, a medic bunker would have done Mr. Massaisku quite a bit of good. Grenadiers, they're moving up, both with the BAR, making a nice concerted effort, actually. And he's sort of using the Geschützwagen for overwatch. And I mean, in this position, it might actually do some good. And of course, you're wondering why. Well, I can't move in my M8 because it's going to expose itself to the Geschützwagen either way it goes. And of course, Grenadiers with BARs actually quite nasty, of course. Notice the damage my riflemen actually take as they try to sort of attack. The BAR is an incredibly powerful weapon, should not be underestimated one bit. Exchange of grenades. Bit of cultural exchange, in fact. Heavy losses on both sides, although the riflemen gain veterans with one. Nice there. Breaking through here. Nebelwerfer's in the center, and here Massaisku makes a bit of a mistake. He's not pushing the attack. I mean, basically, you know, you use artillery to sort of prepare for an attack and then move in. I mean, that's sort of the general artillery theory, I believe, at least from what I've read. But he's sort of, you know, just using it to harass, and it's not quite working because, again, I'm not moving my positions. He could probably actually push in and do some damage, but again, another rifleman team reformed. I just keep getting them, so that's sort of by now made up for the heavy losses I suffered, going for a bit of harassment there. I'm moving against here. I'm also doing this because I'm hoping to draw him into that Greyhound mine. Volkswagen is caught on their own. I've no idea why I send them in so far without support again. I mean, usually, Volkswagen should better be, you know, behind other troops or at least in larger numbers. You know, don't send them ahead on their own. And the Geschützwagen getting attacked by riflemen, hoping to scare it off. Doesn't quite work though. Rangers have arrived to lead the way for the 29th. And again, we see the sort of predictive grenading, trying to hit the path. Now the Geschützwagen actually pulls out as the Rangers with the bazookas move in. The Geschützwagen quickly pulls out. Okay, the Marder, as we'd have to imagine, is here because again it sort of functions like one, not an actual assault gun, I fear. And Geschützwagen quickly driving away, ensuring the Rangers don't actually get it.
Germans are seizing territory from us.
More on the way from the Sturmarmory. It was a nice effort, but again, I mean, could have been supported by the Nebelwerfer, so it could have, you know, tried to press through in the north.
Supply lines are broken. We have territory cut off.
Supply upgrade number 2, and again, just sort of firing into here, and he's never really managing much with it. Can't help but feel. No, he's actually trying to go for here, and that I actually sort of figured because I had some wounded riflemen there, and of course, wounded riflemen, nice target for a Nebelwerfer. There was one that hit precisely on spot, but I actually retreated before that. I mean, usually if you get to a certain stage of, you know, veterancy or, you know, having played the game enough, you can usually sort of predict what your opponent is trying to do, where he's trying to hit. Things like that.
Under attack.
And Grenadiers running straight into it. MGs, and of course he's gone veterancy free. And again, I'd rather recommend him perhaps in veterancy for his armor. He's also got an armored car now. Or a medic bunker again. I don't always feel, you know, you should be going for veterancy free for infantry. I mean, that's great later on, but at this stage I actually think he should have used all those resources, all that fuel for something else. Riflemen win against those first grenadiers though. Slight duel right here. And looks like the Volkswagen might actually win this one. No thanks to the Geschützwagen though, which so far has only managed to kill barbed wire. And Rangers taking up position in that old house and actually managed to hit the Geschützwagen. Riflemen getting stopped by heavy MG fire. Grenadiers moving out. Again, it's sort of the more tough chaps, the ones actually doing most of the work. But now it seems like the chaps who managed to seize the BARs from those naughty Yankees. Trying to hunt down the medics, but running into some other Rangers. Fighting going on here in the north. BAR suppressive fire on the Grenadiers, actually. I mean, again, quite an effective ability. Is probably one of the fastest methods to actually suppress any unit. Knight's Cross gets suppressed quickly. I mean, anything it can generally stop. Armored car that runs into a problem, hits a mine which had placed there earlier, and now runs into the Greyhound, and there's nothing to support it. Geschützwagen tries to sort of heroically move in. Heavily damaged though. Gets off a good shot on the M8, but actually decides to quickly get out, and does he? And the M8 quickly escapes. Main gun destroyed though. Geschützwagen in dire need of repairs. And again, sort of, the Geschützwagen actually part of the 21st Panzer Division. Previously, before that, Schnellbrigade West was again a sort of an attempt to sort of get something out of all those French weapons they captured. And that sort of ended up mostly equipping the 21st Panzer Division, which by the time it was being reconstituted, I don't know which time, but after North Africa and Tunisia, they actually got that because the German industry simply couldn't equip it. I mean, after that was about the time of Kursk, you know, where lots, well, bit of a myth, of course, there, but you know, certainly a bit of armor had been lost on the Eastern Front generally, and of course it was harder to equip something that was in France. I mean, all the equipment was moving towards the Eastern Front to replace what was lost. There we go, engagement here, larger scale, riflemen and grenadiers and false grenadiers, grenades getting lobbed, doing quite a bit of damage, riflemen moving forwards with the BARs. I mean, note again, the BARs really doing a lot of damage, but also to these false grenadiers, more grenades getting lobbed. And I'm basically able to overwhelm these grenadiers with sheer firepower. And again, veterancy 3 grenadiers. And all I needed was a few grenades and the BARs, and I basically won. So I mean, again, do not underestimate riflemen with BARs, of course. If you can get some cover off, great. And mortar team knocked out a false grenade team quite nicely again. Mortar, great thing to have, whatever side you're on. Although, of course, don't get too fond of them. Nebel of Water Fine, Geschützwagen getting repaired. Riflemen holding the position there, grenadiers moving forwards, grenading them. Not managing much though. And again, doing quite a bit of damage to the grenadiers. Heavy damage to the riflemen though, as the grenades knock those chaps out. And a bit of a proper Nebelwerfer rocket actually here. Even damaging the medic station a bit. And again, we're now seeing a really, getting the push ready. Geschützwagen, still no veterancy forward, still no veterancy. Most disagreeable. Forced retreat here, actually forcing both of my ranger teams away. Small engagement here, grenadiers getting cut down. Still no medic bank for Massaisku. Still no medic bank. I'm still very sad about that. That's probably also why we weren't even as he suggested earlier. I'm basically, draining him of life despite all of his veterancy, which, some people like to go about, saying, well, he gets veterancy, I mean, he's basically won. No, he doesn't. Proper tactics and strategy will always win over stuff like that. Because, again, I mean, BARs are simply that powerful, and of course, get some grenade on, in particular, get some veterancy, mortars, all that, and you can really do some damage. Geschützwagen, though, taking heavy damage from the anti-tank guns, trying to get out of there again. Rather than taking heavy damage, MG firing in north. Armor car once more racing in. Nebelwerfer getting ready to lob off a barrage. And Rifleman running into a lot of problem. Full grenadiers and grenadiers en masse.
Casualties being reported. Victory point under siege.
Damaged engine on the armored car. Nebelwerfer rockets fly through the air. Geschützwagen rushes in. Anti-tank gun gets sorted out. He's perhaps hoping to get that M8. Doesn't succeed though. Has to be careful though. Has to be careful.
Enemy unit down.
And grenadiers inside that building take some losses. Only one man leaves the mortar building. Advancing Geschützwagen needs to get the bloody hell out of there. And again, just lots of troops because again, medic station which finally bit the dust was able to keep me reasonably resupplied. MG doing a bit of work there. But by now, I mean, Massaisku has simply suffered 2 heavy losses. The 85th Infantry Division, in this case at least its company here, has been bled dry. I mean, he actually had a lot of grenadiers, even a few full grenades, but again, he simply got drained. Because again, partly, not proper use of cover, he ran at the BAR rifleman, and you never run at BAR riflemen. Geschützwagen down, knocked out by the Rangers. But also basically no medic bunker, nothing to really support it. I don't think he really worked for the things that could really have gained him the advantage against all my infantry. King Tiger, the arriving Königstiger from the Panzerlehr. Funkline Company, I believe that was what you call the Funkline. Which basically means radio control. Something like that. Might be wrong though. And one desperate attempt by the grenadiers to secure that MG. Secured by Rangers actually. It does nothing. And they go. Königstiger moving forward. Not a lot of victory points actually left for Massaisku. Blasting its way through everything. no Yankee shall hinder its path, and I'm close to getting an off-map combat group. Of course, I'm rather realizing I'm a bit lacking in stopping anything that could be, you know, King Tiger sized. I basically have the anti-tank gun, and that's really it. And that mine never gets set off. Bit disappointingly. And artillery called in right there on the Nebelwerfer. Finally getting it on Nebelwerfer. Sorry about that. And looks like some of those surviving grenadiers with the BR moving out. Off-map combat group. M18, mortar, and anti-tank gun.
They're seizing territory from us. The enemy is down to 25 points.
And of course, here's a slight mistake. You know, he's not trying to focus down that anti-tank gun as swiftly as possible. That really ought to be a first priority. And there we go, actually clearing out the crew of Rangers who heroically manned that anti-tank gun, but now they're lying dead in a ditch, ready to be buried. Rangers trying to secure that central victory point. Tank destroyers moving in. Bazookas bouncing off the frontal armor. Greyhound hunting down something in the over here.
Taking casualties.
And basically Massaisku trying to delay time as swiftly as possible, going for all victory points he can. And no, game over. He lost. The 85th Infantry Division will be forced to pull away after this failed night assault. And of course, what can we learn from this? I mean, again, you know, the stuff about medic bunkers, he had a bit dodgy cover usage at times, and particularly against riflemen with BARs. Be careful with that. And he was also, you know, I think again this sort of problem was partly, you know, too much veterancy on the infantry too fast, and not enough veterancy on the armored vehicles, and certainly not getting anything that could really, you know, help in the long run. Nothing any to push. No further naval efforts, no mortars, and again, not really attacking in the center when he could. He was sort of perhaps a bit too worried what might be there, rather than actually wondering what is actually there. You have to sort of be careful about that. But there you go. Do hope you enjoyed this game. If you did, why not subscribe or tell your friends, and if you didn't, well, why not send a replay of your own. This is ImperialDane saying cheers.